Hi-ho folks, we're going to be taking a quick look at the multiplayer in Myth this time. So you have your sort of very basic character setup here, just a name, and you can pick an icon from this set here. I usually go with fist. And you can pick a primary and secondary color from these color wheels, which affects your icon color and also the way your units appear in the game. So that's about it. You also have a team name. When you're the captain of a group of players, this will be the name of their team. So most games, at least in the early days of Myth, were played through a meta server, or a kind of a matchmaking and chat lobby service called Bungie.net. Now, since Take-Two owns the Myth IP these days, and they're not interested in running a meta server, that's not available anymore. So you can connect directly to someone's TCP IP address if you know it, if you know that they're running a game. Or you can connect to Mariusnet, which is a third-party meta server. It was developed several years ago by someone just sort of reverse engineering the Myth communication protocols. So I have an account at Mariusnet, and we're going to log in there and take a look around. So here I am in the room called Scales. Mariusnet has lots of different rooms named after different areas and places in Myth. And each room tells you how many games it has going on in it and how many players there are. So it looks pretty empty today, except over in Shiver. So here you can see these are all Myth 2 players, which is not really surprising. There's not a lot of Myth 1 stuff going on Bungie.net. I'm the only Myth 1 player in this room. If there was a Myth 1 game, we would see the information displayed over here. I'll log into Myth 2 briefly just to show you what game info looks like here. Okay, here we are logged in with Myth 2. So you can see now we have information shown. This room has 2 games, and they're both Myth 2 games. They're dimmed out right now because they're in progress, so I can't join them. And they are red because they're using some sort of map or plugin that I don't have. You can still see the basic information. There's a game name, the number of players, the kind of general settings of the game. So if these games were currently open, in between games in the kind of game lobby, and if they weren't red, then I could just click on this game and then join it. But I can't do that right now. In any case, let's go ahead and go on back to continue looking at the Myth 1 setup. The skull in the lower right-hand corner means that this is a ranked room. The ermine will track your stats and keep track of and display your ranks. I'm just a single dagger in this account. That's my rank icon. I haven't played any ranked games yet with this particular guy. If you go into a room without a skull, it's unranked. Doesn't show your rank, doesn't track your stats. Mariusnet has made a few changes to the way this meta server works. They've added another type of room called a tournament room, indicated by these crossed axes. It doesn't display your rank, but it does track your stats. And the ranked rooms will only track stats for games that are at least 4 players and not co-op. But the tournament rooms will track stats for any game. So this is useful if you're arranging a tournament and you want to play a particular type of game. And the fact that the stats in games are tracked means that the tournament organizer can easily figure out what's going on in his tournament. Another thing that Mariusnet added is a special room just for the World War II mod, which is a very popular mod for Myth. Alright, is there anything else to see around here? Probably not. If the player count goes too high, which the highest player count we've got here is 29, so that doesn't get into the red zone. You can get rooms that are full, and then you won't be able to enter them, but we don't have any such rooms here this morning. If you're curious about what these blue lines are, by the way, they just show administrative messages. And then this is, of course, just the chat interface here. I guess the only thing left to talk about is these buttons across the top here. This, of course, will exit the meta server. If there's a game here, we could join it. You can mute other players there. This is the important one, of course. You can create a new game, which will then show up in the lobby here for other people to join. So let's do that. Okay, so the first thing we see is a bunch of options for setting up the game. I'm going to skip through this for now. We'll come back to that in just a few seconds. I just want to first show this game lobby that I've created. So this is the kind of the rendezvous spot for anybody who's interested in playing in the games that I'm going to be hosting. So I'm going to have a few fake players just join in for demonstration purposes. And the players in the game lobby, we can chat just among ourselves about whatever we want and decide, what game settings we want to use. So as the host, it's my responsibility to set up the game correctly. So let's go back into the options screen. We could do co-op or competitive. For this first example, let's do co-op on Force 10 from Stoneheim, and maybe heroic difficulty, although legendary is used a lot in co-op. The plugins list here, that's basically the way you can activate third-party maps and mods. We're just going to ignore that for the moment. And all the rest of the settings look okay, so let's go ahead and just go with that. Now you've probably seen that back out here in the lobby, above the player list, there are these two new buttons, Join Team or Boot Player. Boot is pretty self-explanatory. That's an option just for me, just for the host. Join Team is how you make teams. So I could select Fall Guy here and press Join Team, and that means that I want to be on Fall Guy's team and I want him to be the captain. Now that I'm on a team here, I have the Leave Team button available to me, so if I change my mind, I can just go back out again. Let's say that the players here, we've kind of chatted amongst ourselves and decided that they want me to be the captain, so they're going to start joining me. And as team captain, I now have this disband team button, so I can dissolve the team if I don't like the situation. But it's fine, so I'm going to leave it the way it is. Now, if you have any solo players not assigned to teams when you start the map, then Myth will randomly pick some of them to be captains if that's necessary to bring you to the maximum number of teams allowed on the map. And then any remaining unassigned players will get randomly assigned to teams, with Myth trying to make the teams as equal-sized as possible. But for a co-op map, there's only one team, so all we're really deciding here is who the captain's going to be. And notice that when you join a team, you take on the team captain's primary color, and your old primary color becomes your secondary, and this is going to affect what your units look like in the game. So as captain, you can see that I've started out with all the units. I've got 100%. In Myth, any player that has units can choose to give control of them to somebody else on their team. So I can select these archers here and choose to detach them to Strawman. And I could give the Zerks to Fall Guy.
Units detached. What? Units detached.
And let's give part of the dwarves to Punching Bag.
Units detached.
You can see that the colors are changed on the detached units, which indicates the player that's controlling them. And you can also just select the units and see the player's name in the info box. These dwarves over here are still mine. They've still got the yellow bounding box around them, so I can control them. The units that I've detached are now under the other player's control. So, for example, Strawman could move his archers off to the left. But even those archers aren't mine anymore. As captain, I could still choose to move them. So maybe back over here to the right. And if I think that Fall Guy, for example, needs some archers to go with his Zerks, I could even take the archers away from Strawman and give them to Fall Guy.
Units detached.
Now, it's considered really rude to override a player's control unless it's a real emergency, especially if you don't warn the player first. But the bottom line is that the captain does have ultimate control over all the units on his team, if he chooses to use it. And so traditionally the captain calls the shots for a team. That's just a brief look at how you get multiple players into a campaign map. So let's go ahead and see how this applies to competitive multiplayer. For this example, I'm going to enable the planning time option, which gives you a breather at the beginning of the match where you can think about what you're going to do, chat with your teammates, and do unit trading if that's enabled. I'm not going to enable the carryover of veteran units because you almost never do that for competitive MP. Okay, let's have the usual suspects join in. And one thing I didn't show last time is that you can close the game lobby to keep any more people from joining. But anyway, let's go ahead and start the game. Since this map only has positions for 3 teams, 2 of the players have been randomly teamed up. But I'm on my own here, so I'll just go ahead and start my unit trading. Now, I showed unit trading briefly in the original tutorial video. It's a way to customize your troops at the start of a competitive MP match. And you start with the default loadout, and each unit has a certain point cost, so you can sort of sell and buy units until you have the mix you want. So you can pick troops to match the tactics you want to use. Here I'm just picking a fairly balanced mix, maybe a little heavy on the melee side, and I sacrifice my journeyman for more upfront attack power. Once you're sure you're done, you just hit OK, and then you can start detaching units, setting up your presets, or whatever.
Game on.
And one more neat little feature that I should mention is that you can draw on the overhead map with this pencil tool. And you can also clear it with the eraser tool. Only your teammates can see this, so it's pretty worthless for me in this example game.
30 seconds remaining.
But if we pretend that I have some teammates that I wanted to show something to, I could mark enemy or friendly unit positions or show routes to take, things like that.
Casualty.
In the last few minutes of this video, I just want to briefly describe the multiplayer game modes in Myth. So the most straightforward game mode is body count. And the goal of body count is just to do the most damage before time expires. So you want to get into fights, but you want to do well. If you just rush someone blindly, like I'm doing here, you're likely to end up helping their score more than your own. The scoreboard display in multiplayer lists the players in order of their current placing, with the score on the left side of the player's name. And on the right side, it also shows how much of each player's team is still left alive, with the percentage that's calculated according to the unit costs. Once a game is over, everyone is sent to the post-game lobby, where you can chat, and look at some statistics. The rank stats show how teams placed in the game, and how many kills and survivors each player had. Perm shows some info about points that will affect players' persistence stats and ranking, if this is a ranked game. Kills shows kills over time for each team, and damage shows damage over time. The score and units buttons that you see there, grayed out, are supposed to show more time-based graphs, but for whatever reason, those buttons don't work. And the last kills button on the far right is a breakdown of your own kill graph that shows which particular players you're beating on at different times. Now, since I simulated a clueless rusher a little too well in this game, all I managed to do was get one kill on the white team, Strawman. So this graph isn't too exciting. Well, after everyone is through peering at the stats, we could use the Restart Game button to go back to the pregame lobby with the same set of players. Although it looks like Fall Guy's already left. I guess he doesn't want to play with a rusher.